Pretend until our hearts are real. Li Wei had grown up in front of cameras. From the moment he stepped under the hot glare of studio lights at 9 years old, directors whispered about his uncanny ability to cry on cue, about the way his smile seemed to leap off the screen. By 12, Li Wei was a household name. By 15, he was the face of a generation. His posters lined bedroom walls, his interviews trended for days, and his fan clubs spanned continents. For 20 years, the world had watched him grow, from precocious child actor to teen idol, then into a leading man who carried blockbuster films on his shoulders. His name was synonymous with success. His face was a brand. His career seemed untouchable. But fame is fickle. It doesn't vanish overnight, not like falling off a cliff. It erodes, slowly, like waves eating away at the shore. One day, the script stopped arriving in neat stacks. The calls from directors grew polite but distant. Younger actors, fresher faces, hungrier smiles, filled the roles Li Wei once claimed without audition. He scrolled through social media one night, his name buried beneath hashtags of rising stars. His last film had flopped. His last drama had been cancelled mid-season. He was still recognized on the street, but the recognition carried a different weight now. Nostalgia, not excitement. "Weren't you that actor from?" strangers asked, trailing off, unable to recall the title. Li Wei laughed it off, but inside, the silence was deafening. At 29, Li Wei found himself staring at the fading posters on his apartment wall. They were relics of another life, glossy reminders of a boy who had once seemed invincible. He had given everything to the industry, his childhood, his adolescence, his 20s, and now it seemed to have no place for him. He tried to convince himself it was just a slump, that the right script would come along, but weeks turned into months, and the phone stayed quiet. He had money, yes, but money couldn't fill the void of being forgotten. He had fame, but fame without relevance was a ghost. He had fans, but even they were moving on, their devotion shifting to newer idols. He was trapped in a limbo, too famous to disappear, too irrelevant to matter. The call came from his manager one evening, her voice tight with forced cheer. "There's an opportunity," she said. "Not a film. Not a drama. A variety show." Li Wei frowned. Variety? Yes. A couples variety show. 4 celebrity couples living together, competing in challenges. It's popular right now. Great exposure. He almost hung up. He had built his career on serious roles, on prestige. Variety shows were for idols, comedians, influencers. Not for actors who once held awards in their hands. But desperation is a powerful motivator. "No scripts, no offers," his manager reminded him. "This could put you back in the public eye." Li Wei sat in silence, staring at the posters. Maybe humiliation was better than invisibility. Maybe survival meant swallowing pride. There was just one problem. Li Wei wasn't dating anyone. The show required couples. Real couples, or at least convincing ones. He thought of the men he had dated, fleeting romances, tabloid scandals, relationships that fizzled under the weight of fame. None of them would agree to this. Then he thought of Zhang Yichen. Zhang Yichen had been his childhood co-star. They had debuted together, 2 boys navigating the chaos of sets and scripts. Yichen had left acting after a few years, choosing music instead. And he had soared. Now, at 29, Zhang Yichen was one of the most beloved singers in the country. His voice filled stadiums. His albums topped charts. He was adored, respected, untouchable. Li Wei hadn't spoken to Yichen in months, but when he dialed his number, Yichen answered on the second ring. "Hey," Yichen said, warmth in his voice. "It's been a while." Li Wei hesitated. "I need a favor." They met at a quiet cafe, away from cameras. Li Wei explained the show, the situation, the desperation. Yichen listened, sipping his coffee, eyes thoughtful. "You want me to pretend to be your boyfriend?" Yichen asked finally. Li Wei winced. "I know it's ridiculous, but you're the only one I trust, and you'd make it believable." Yichen laughed, soft and melodic. "You always did know how to ask for impossible things." Silence stretched between them. Then Yichen leaned forward. "All right," he said. "I'll do it. But only because you're my friend. And because maybe it'll be fun." Relief flooded Li Wei. For the first time in months, he felt hope flicker. As they left the cafe, the city lights reflected in Yichen's eyes. Li Wei didn't notice the way his heart skipped. Not yet. But the stage was set. That night, Li Wei lay awake, staring at the ceiling of his apartment. The decision was made, but the weight of it pressed down on him. He had agreed to something that felt beneath him, something that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. Yet here he was, clinging to the hope that a variety show could breathe life back into his career. He turned over, restless, and thought of Yichen again. The memory of Yichen's easy smile at the cafe lingered, the way he had agreed without hesitation, as if stepping into Li Wei's chaos was the most natural thing in the world. The next few days were filled with preparations. Contracts arrived, thick with clauses about image rights and broadcast schedules. Li Wei skimmed them, his mind elsewhere. He thought of the house where they would live, the cameras that would capture every moment, the audience that would dissect every glance. He thought of Yichen, how his presence would change everything. They had not worked together in years, but the bond was still there, unspoken yet undeniable. Li Wei remembered the early days vividly. He was 11, Yichen 10, both cast in a family drama that became a surprise hit. They had played brothers, and the chemistry between them was so natural that audiences believed it instantly. Off-screen, they were inseparable. They shared snacks between takes, whispered jokes during rehearsals, and comforted each other when the long hours grew unbearable. Yichen had always been braver, more willing to speak his mind, while Li Wei had been cautious, careful to please. He admired Yichen's fire, even envied it. When Yichen left acting to pursue music, Li Wei had felt abandoned, though he never admitted it. Watching Yichen rise as a singer had been bittersweet, pride tangled with longing, joy shadowed by envy. Now, years later, fate had pulled them back together. Li Wei wondered if Yichen remembered those days as clearly as he did. He wondered if Yichen saw through his facade, if he knew how close Li Wei was to breaking. On the morning of filming, Li Wei stood outside the studio gates, nerves buzzing in his chest. Fans had gathered, their screams echoing through the air. He adjusted his jacket, trying to look composed, but his hands trembled. Then Yichen arrived, casual in a simple shirt and jeans, his presence commanding without effort. The crowd erupted, chanting his name, waving banners. Li Wei watched, a pang of envy twisting in his chest, but also something softer, something he didn't want to name. Yichen spotted him and walked over, his smile easy. "Ready?" he asked. Li Wei forced a laugh. "As I'll ever be." Yichen clapped him on the shoulder. "Don't worry. We'll make this fun." The doors opened, and they stepped inside, hand in hand. The lights flared, the cameras rolled, and the game began. Li Wei's first impression of the house was that it was too perfect. The polished floors gleamed under the lights, the furniture looked like it had been chosen from a catalog, and every corner seemed designed to catch the eye of a camera. It wasn't a home, it was a stage. He felt the weight of it immediately, the knowledge that every gesture, every word, every glance would be dissected by millions. He had lived under scrutiny his whole life, but this was different. This wasn't a role he could hide behind. This was him, or at least the version of him the producers wanted to sell. Zhang Yichen, on the other hand, seemed completely at ease. He walked through the house with a casual confidence, greeting the staff, laughing at the decor, making jokes that put everyone around him at ease. Li Wei watched him, a mixture of admiration and envy stirring in his chest. Yichen had always had that gift, the ability to make people feel comfortable, to draw them in without effort. It was the same gift that had carried him to the top of the music industry, the same gift that made stadiums roar when he stepped on stage. The other couples arrived one by one. The idol pair, dazzling and young, their chemistry obvious and carefully curated. The comedian and his husband, already cracking jokes, their banter filling the room with laughter. The model and his athlete boyfriend, glamorous and intimidating, every movement polished. Li Wei felt the comparisons pressing in on him, the subtle glances, the unspoken judgments. He was the actor whose star had dimmed, standing next to the singer who shone brighter than ever. Introductions were awkward. Li Wei stumbled over his words, trying to sound natural, but Yichen stepped in smoothly, his voice warm and confident. "We've known each other since we were kids," Yichen said. "We grew up together in the industry. We've always been close. And now we're here." He reached over and squeezed Li Wei's hand, casual, easy, and the tension eased. For a moment, Li Wei almost believed it himself. The first challenge was announced: cooking dinner together for the house. It was meant to showcase teamwork, chemistry, compatibility. Li Wei groaned inwardly. Cooking was not his strength. Yichen, however, moved confidently around the kitchen, humming as he chopped vegetables, teasing Li Wei when he fumbled with the knife. "You're hopeless," Yichen said, laughing. "Good thing you're handsome." Li Wei rolled his eyes, cheeks burning, but the banter flowed easily. The cameras caught every moment, every laugh, every glance. Later, when the couple sat down to eat, the comedian joked that they looked more like newlyweds than anyone else. Li Wei laughed along, but inside, his heart raced. That evening, scrolling through social media on his phone, Li Wei saw the comments already pouring in. Clips of them cooking together had gone viral. Fans were debating whether their relationship was real, analyzing every glance, every touch. Some were skeptical, but many were convinced. "They're so natural," one comment read. "You can't fake that kind of chemistry." Li Wei stared at the words, unsettled. Was it chemistry? Or was it just years of friendship, familiarity? He didn't know. But he couldn't deny the way his chest tightened when he thought of Yichen's smile. Days passed, and the show settled into rhythm. Challenges, interviews, shared meals, late-night conversations. Li Wei found himself relaxing, laughing more, feeling lighter. Yichen was always there, steady, supportive, teasing him when he faltered, encouraging him when he doubted. The cameras caught it all, and the audience ate it up. For the first time in months, Li Wei felt relevant again. For the first time in years, he felt alive. But beneath the surface, something was shifting. Li Wei caught himself watching Yichen too often, listening too closely, feeling too much. He told himself it was part of the act, that it was necessary for the show. But late at night, when the cameras dimmed and the house grew quiet, he couldn't deny the truth. He was falling. Slowly, quietly, inevitably. He was falling for his best friend. One night, after a long day of filming, Li Wei and Yichen sat together in the garden. The other couples had gone to bed, the cameras were still rolling but distant, and the air was cool. Yichen leaned back, looking up at the stars. "Do you ever think about how strange this is?" he asked. Li Wei frowned. "Strange how?" "Us. Here. Pretending to be something we're not. And yet sometimes it doesn't feel like pretending." Li Wei's breath caught. He looked at Yichen, the soft glow of the garden lights illuminating his face, and felt the words rise in his throat. He wanted to say it, wanted to admit what he was feeling, but fear held him back. Instead, he laughed softly. "You're too good at this. You make it look real." Yichen turned to him, eyes steady. "Maybe it is real." The silence stretched between them, heavy and charged. Li Wei looked away, his heart pounding. He didn't know what to say, didn't know how to respond. He had spent his whole life performing, but this was different. This wasn't a role. This was him, raw and vulnerable, standing on the edge of something he didn't understand. Later, lying in bed, Li Wei replayed the moment over and over. Yichen's words echoed in his mind. Maybe it is real. He didn't know what Yichen meant, didn't know if it was just another layer of the act, but the possibility gnawed at him. For the first time in years, Li Wei felt something stronger than fear, stronger than desperation. He felt hope. And though he didn't know it yet, Yichen felt the same.